Hey, thanks for joining me, Dorothy, on Through an Orthodox Christian Lens. I'm here with my son, Nicholas, or Nico, as we call him. This is the third episode of a talk we're doing on 9/11, the catalyst for the next Cold War, basically Cold War 2.0. And we're going to start where we left off. Nicholas was talking about some more modern events, but he needs to get into a little bit more history before we get to the more modern stuff. So go ahead, take it away.
Yes, thank you. It was this is an event that doesn't really neatly fit into any particular category. It's something that I stumbled upon in my research that I found actually pretty extremely disturbing. As we know, there's the both sides, concerning the conflict with Gaza, and um, Hamas is by no means a perfect organization and definitely has problems of their own. I don't really want there to be going around that they're this, you know, pure savior group that's, purely saving all the Palestinians. I wouldn't say that's quite the case. I do think that they're helping them in as a kind of a because of what's going on. But let's just say I don't know if that's their full honest intentions, but I'll leave it there.
Although the
However, we
Palestinians really don't have much choice in this, so
well, yeah, exactly. That's
they've
kind
got
of the
to go
point
with
is
what's
because who else is defending them, really? Nobody. So,
other than the Yemenis, but that's
right. There are groups now, and groups tied to Iran that are now helping and stuff, which is nice. But, unfortunately, a lot of these groups paint a bad, they make it easy to paint a really bad picture on, unfortunately, the Palestinians as well because of what is associated with them. That said, I think there's this kind of tendency to overlook things Israel has historically done that aren't great. If you know the whole David Hotel thing, that's really terrible.
King
Um,
David. Yeah.
yeah. And there's some other instances too, but the one that I want to get into is known as the Operation Wrath of God. I had never heard of this before, and it spanned from 1972 into the 1980s. So, pretty long operation. Um, so to just get into it a little bit, it was also kind of known as the Munich Massacre as well. Um, and it was in September 1972 during the Munich Olympics. Members of the Palestinian group Black September took Israeli athletes hostage, leading to a botched rescue attempt in which all 11 Israeli athletes were killed. And so Israel's response to this, Prime Minister Golda Meir authorized a covert campaign to hunt down and assassinate anyone believed to be connected to the Munich attack anywhere in the world.
Did you say who was the one that took them as hostages?
It was a group of Palestinians known as Black September.
Oh, okay.
And I will get into the history of why they did this because remember, I talked in an earlier part that knowing the motives behind why something is done is extremely important because nothing is ever black and white. There's always history and culture and things mingled in as to why decisions are made. So, but to understand something, the tactics they used to assassinate these people were car bombs, mail bombs, and close range shootings in Europe and the Middle East. And operatives were often worked under deep cover in foreign countries, sometimes using forged passports from Western nations. And
Mm-hmm.
in an example being in 1973, Mossad agents mistakenly killed an innocent waiter, Ahmed Bouchiki, in Norway, wrongly believing he was a target. So, and that's called the Lillehammer affair. I'm probably butchering these pronunciations, but um, so the legal status for those curious, extrajudicial killings in sovereign nations without trials clearly violate international law, but Israel justified them as quote unquote self-defense. Does that sound familiar? We can definitely see a lot of that happening now. I would say this goes beyond self-defense. This is more along the lines of vengeance, taking,
Well, yes, but they also this wasn't a new thing. They've been doing these
no,
kind of bombings since their inception. So,
right, of course. But what was really important about this was, state-sponsored assassination and intimidation, which, we go on about terrorism and everything, and I'm just going to ask a question. Do these actions constitute as terrorism or do they not? I'm not going to give an answer. I'm just going to throw that question
well, if
out
it's
there.
attack against civilians, that's considered terrorism.
Well, the
That's the
viewers can
definition.
Well, the viewers can decide that. I mean, I'm in agreement with you, but I'm just saying everybody has the right to feel that how they want. So basically, there's more stuff, talking about the Munich massacre, and to kind of get into that, 8 members of Black September, a faction linked to the PLO, took 11 Israeli Olympic team members hostage in Munich. So their demands were to release of Palestinian prisoners held in Israel, sound familiar, and 2 German radicals who were in prison. There was a German rescue attempt that failed, and all 11 hostages were killed. So that's kind of what happened. And of course, the prime minister of Israel then authorized that secret campaign of an assassination almost immediately afterward. So the objectives were these: kill everyone connected to planning, funding, or carrying out Munich. Not just the people that actually did that, it was anyone even associated with it. And 2, send a warning to anyone considering attacks on Israeli or Jewish targets worldwide. You will be hunted no matter where you are. Those are
Um,
basically the messages.
I'm just going to bring up something since you said that.
Hmm.
Uh, Let me see if I can find it. Can you see this?
I don't see anything on my side.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to bring up something.
Okay, here we are.
So
Yeah,
I'm
I
going
see
to
it.
bring, not this, I'm not going to bring this up. I'm
Oh,
going to bring up what this because you just said this, it just reminded me of this that I saw on September 10th. Israeli war chief vows to strike enemies wherever they are following Doha attack.
yeah. You see, this is exactly the point I'm trying to prove why history is so important, because you can see often these actions repeat. This is just how history is. And so seeing this just kind of really shows that this is the sort of mentality they have in addressing attacks or confrontations with other nations that they don't like, and that they personally feel are unjust. And look, you are free to feel however you want, but I think the methods of which they go about these are morally questionable. Um, and so, again, keep in mind that during the Operation Wrath of God, all killings were extrajudicial, no trials, no due process. This was just, they thought they were, criminals and needed to be killed, and there was no option for a legal trial or anything like that.
So no punishment for those that did the murders.
Well, no, they got away with it.
I see.
Yeah.
That
So,
seems to be a perpetual pattern. I mean, it just seems like a pattern over the years.
yeah. And again, there was collateral damage. Innocent bystanders and mistaken targets were killed during this. So, those
Again,
innocent people were
that's
unfortunately roped into that.
yes, and that's a pattern.
Yeah. And another thing is there was sovereignty violations. Israel carried out armed operations in multiple countries without their consent. So that was a violation that they just didn't care.
And
you
that's
know.
exactly what they have been doing as of late with
Hmm.
with going into certain, as they're doing in Lebanon, as they did in now they're doing in Qatar. They just go in wherever they want because they feel like, oh, they have the right to do that. Just total impunity where they can do whatever they want. That's how I
Hmm.
see it.
And I have so many notes on this that just kind of wrap this up on like, there's so much stuff that Israel has done historically that can be cited and found out, um, and so, it's just it doesn't it doesn't take much. If you know the places to look and where to search, and you can have that freedom of information without it being censored, you can find it. But for me, when I was going down that rabbit hole, it was a lot of very concerning, very concerning stuff that made me be like, I don't know how much I would feel okay with a state like Israel. And, yeah, there's a lot of countries that aren't great, but there's certain things that Israel has done historically that makes me think, hmm, I don't know how I feel about this.
So
Because this,
let's go over like let's just kind of summarize everything that you've said so far so we can get
mhm.
into now what's happening. So you're
So,
saying that it's the East versus West
mhm.
and that it's now a different geopolitically different in the Middle East. It's changing as well as all over the world globally. And as we see, let's talk about a little bit about the Balkans and the Azerbaijan issue.
Yeah, I believe part of my theory is talking about the open window. Um, 9/11 was something that basically made the window just fly open. It's wide open. We have all these opportunities to, you know, do what we need to do in our strategic areas of interest. And the reason why the proxy war, because that's what I believe it is, the proxy war with Ukraine,
Yes, but even
um,
Rubio called it a proxy war, so
you know, and yeah, exactly. So that proxy war is a means of which, because we need to view China, Russia, and Iran as these forces that are starting to make the window close. And when we start up another conflict, we're trying to keep the window open. We don't want it to close. And what I mean by the window closing, it means our opportunity in the Middle East and to have all this trade control and things like that. And obviously keeping those powers out from those strategic places, because I don't think people realize how important the Middle East is as the bridge to trade on that part of the world. It's extremely important. And Armenia and Azerbaijan, that issue is super important because historically speaking, Russia has almost always been involved in talks with Armenia concerning Azerbaijan. There was only one instance from what I was reading that they were not quite as closely involved, but they were still knowing about it and stuff like that. This talk that Trump went into in America, doing this whole thing with Armenia and getting involved and making these deals without Russia, was historically the first time that has ever happened.
oh.
And so that is like a really, really um, bad thing to do, because obviously Russia is not happy about that. And also, Iran historically has also been involved in some of these talks, not always, but in and out. And the fact that they were not involved and China was not involved was a problem. And to understand why, there's this corridor that is important that Armenia and Azerbaijan are kind
James
of a
or
part of. Yeah. And that corridor is so important to trade between China into Iran and Iran up through Russia. And it's this very important place. And Russia keeping connections with Armenia was important. Well, then you have to wonder, well, why is Armenia going to the west? What happened? Well, that's where the proxy war with Ukraine also serves a purpose. Because they were busy with that, there was a uprising problem with Azerbaijan and Armenia, but Russia was unable to help because they were busy with the Ukraine issue. Huh, isn't that interesting? And so then that makes Russia look bad, and thus Armenia is going to the West because America's like, oh no, we see you, we care, we'll help you out. And of course, Armenia, who's desperate, understandably so, with all this stuff going on, that's not great and it needs to be handled. They see the West as an olive branch and are desperate to take it since Russia isn't there. Um, and so now we have more division being made. And also to keep in mind, this is a huge blow against BRICS. Um, and I think this was the plan all along to use the Middle East as a platform to eventually move in and stop trade routes and things like this. We are beginning to see the fruits of the catalyst that was 9/11 beginning to unfold before us. The first steps were bringing instability into the Middle East, making it harder for countries like Russia, Iran, and China to interact with them. And then finally, we have now to where we're seeing the proxy wars, the distractions of like Taiwan with China, Ukraine with Russia, and then of course with Iran, we have the sanctions and the secret operations and stuff that happen in there that we're trying to create destabilization and stuff. And that's all for the purpose of, again, so we could carry out this Azerbaijan Armenia deal because all three of them are busy with their own problems, hence why they're not able to attend these things and be a part of it. It's to me, it comes off as very underhanded kind of diplomacy, quote unquote, if we want to call it that.
Yeah. Yes, and of course, I think that the deep state, or whatever you want to call these people that are handling everything, the handlers behind Trump, they flattered him by saying, "Oh, look, see, you can do a peace deal here with Azerbaijan and Armenia." And of course, he ate that up and was excited.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's thinking things are going to, I don't think he really knows the whole truth of what's going on with that at all, because he doesn't really pay attention anyway, as it is to these type of issues. So it's easy for people to manipulate and say whatever they want, which
Mm-hmm.
has been shown. What's interesting, I was just thinking about, I know it's kind of off topic, but it has to do with, I mean, off topic of the Azerbaijan thing, but it seems to me, looking over US and Russia relations, it doesn't, America doesn't see any difference between between pre-USSR Soviet Union and post-USSR Soviet Union. It's the same to them. It doesn't
Well,
matter if it was an Orthodox Christian country or whatever. They don't care. All they care about is if it's the power, if the power's there, if the, you know, who's our rival.
well, that's where my theory gets a little deeper, where I think an organization, possibly APAC, probably went to Congress and offered, because of the rise of Russia, offered a saying, oh, these Arab nations, they tend to be like terrorists, they're extremists and terrorists and stuff. And this is what we can use as the excuse of which to get um into the Middle East. When in reality, I would say the real label isn't terrorism, it's Russia, it's communism, it's this that we're already seeing. And terrorism is just the vehicle of which we use to get in there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that makes sense. Yeah.
And and again, I think Israel's just leeching off of us with our own stuff. They only probably helped us maybe develop a plan of which to get in there that would help with you know,
Well, a lot of people don't think that they're our ally, that they've done anything for us, considering that they killed many of our sailors in the USS Liberty. They
yep.
didn't tell the Marines or America or the president at the time in 1982 when the Marine barracks were blown up in Lebanon because of Israelis invading Lebanon because they want to take over Lebanon. They knew that was going to happen, but they didn't say anything. They didn't give any warnings
Hmm.
to our people. And, we lost 200 and some Marines on that. And that's when I first started to learn about the Izzy's background because
Hmm.
I hadn't, I had been such a fervent supporter of Izzy's until that time, until around 2009, 2010. And when I started to realize all of these things that they really weren't our ally. They use us and we use them. And
Hmm.
that's all that is. It's not really an ally. It doesn't really,
Yeah.
they're not really supporting, I mean, we do more supporting than they do, but
Hmm.
it's not what has been said to be for decades.
Well, again, and the whole reason we're allowing this Gaza problem, I think, as far as the US goes, is because it benefits our interests. It keeps the instability there, which makes it harder for Iran to focus on trading and getting BRICS going if there's constant unrest in the Middle East. I mean, how
Well,
has Iran
didn't,
ever?
yes, but didn't you say something about this isn't the first genocide that we've just kind of ignored? But we'll get into that in another video. This is regarding that's one on Cambodia, which we will get into another video on the Asian side of this issue.
Yeah.
Lots of history.
Yep. There's a lot of history, and I was surprised to learn that this has not been the first time that America has been in support of genocide. But they'll want you to just sweep that under the rug and ignore that. So,
Yeah.
but it's pretty clear that if they're okay with it now, it makes you wonder, well, maybe we were okay with it in the past at some point. And yes, yes, we were.
Yes, and we've been doing the same thing in the Balkans,
Hmm.
trying to disturb everything there so that, and as I think you mentioned, it's a buffer zone,
Hmm.
and we constantly try to do that, just like we did with Iran. The buffer zone there, that is the Azerbaijan thing.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
Yep. And something to keep in mind also with the Armenia Azerbaijan thing is that whole deal has also now blocked a part of China's belt and road in the westward path that they were planning. So this is very much a deliberate move to destabilize and slow down BRICS. And
yeah.
something to keep in mind that that's kind of foreseen is that if Russia, Iran, and China do not act within a year to 2 years, um, and stop this channel and rip it away basically from the West, they will pretty much lose a grip on it forever, which means that puts a huge um, problem in their trades.
So why do
And
you think they would say, why do you think that you say forever?
well, I mean, obviously, probably never forever, but the point is, it's when you have something like that and you relinquish it, history, of course, has shown us that the longer it's in someone else's hands, the harder it is to get. I mean, China has suffered from this themselves with Hong Kong. I mean, they lost it during the Opium Wars, and then because Britain just took it away from them basically unjustly, and then you know then finally they were given back with all problems in tow, and then China had to work on cleaning that up. Oh, how fun!
Yes,
So.
well, that's going to be for another talk. But the interesting thing here is what you just said, because Iran is working with China and Russia.
Mhm.
So they are doing something. And then we just find out that Russia has been talking to whatever his name is, Ashara, the leader in Syria, which is the ex Al Qaeda leader.
Mhm.
There's an actual article on that, although I don't think I have it up now, where Ashara was saying that the reason they helped, that Russia actually helped during that time when they came into power, him and his group, when Assad fled, and said that, Russia helped us and is helping us. Um, it sounds awful, but then you think, well, when you're dealing with this kind of thing, you're going to go with who you can and what you know is this is an area, strategic area. Although, Russia still has its base there,
Hmm.
even though I'm not sure how Turkey feels about that. I forget. I know Israel wants it out, which, if you go by the history, makes perfect sense that they
Right.
want them out. But the point is, um, they are still working with the Syrians, and they're making ties with Iran because they know those are important strategic allies, quote unquote. At this point, they need that, especially, and not only that, because it protects BRICS as well. So,
Yep.
yeah. And there's my cat. Okay. Well, anyway, we're going to wrap this video up. We
Hmm.
have three of them here, and hopefully, we'll be out here a little bit later, but not too late. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for following my channel. I hope this information was informative and interesting to you. It was to me. And I appreciate my son coming on with all his knowledge that he's learned and all the research he's done, and he shared it with us. And so if you have any comments, you can leave them below. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Until next time.